So how does religion play into wants, and what do you do when it seems at odds?
If you want to take a Christian perspective at this, the answer is in the parable of the talents. The person who hid their talent away, you have the person who sort of grew their talent, and then you have the person who massively grew their talent, right?
Yeah.
So the principle under all of that is that the two that grew their talents were rewarded. You have been a faithful steward over the things that I've given you. If God is willing to give you life, freedom, and the ability to go and do something, and you don't do something with it, as a Christian believer, you have misstepped your obligation to your Christianity and your belief, because God gave you life, God gave you wisdom, God gave you experience to take that and do more with it than what you could possibly do. And if you don't do those things, then you are a slothful servant.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up, because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go.
As the go-to marketing mentor and strategist for top producers in insurance, coaching, and service industries, Bud Heaton has perfected the art of building automated marketing machines that sell without stopping. Bud shows busy entrepreneurs how to completely simplify their systems using proven frameworks, powerful tools, and optimizing team building strategy for maximum efficiency to free up their time and energy through campaigns that keep new business flowing around the clock. You are in for a fabulous conversation, rabbit holes included, with the amazing Bud Heaton. Here's the conversation. Let's go. Oh, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It is Sarah Grace. I am so excited to be joined by a new friend today. You guys, I'm so excited to introduce you to the amazing Bud Heaton. Bud, so glad you're here, my friend.
Thank you. Good to be here.
This is going to be good. You guys, Bud is a new friend of mine. And the way that we actually bonded was we both get to cry with the amazing Mandy Keene. Is that correct?
On occasion. I don't admit that very often, but today I will.
I love it. Well, it's now out into the universe. Everybody knows that Bud Heaton has cried with Mandy Keene. It's true. So incredible. Well, I have such an admiration for her. And she tagged you in a post and said, you have got to get Bud on there. And I went down the rabbit hole of your world. Dude, you have done everything everywhere. Man, you have had quite a journey, haven't you?
I have. It's been a good one.
Well, I have to say that the thing that really, really stood out to me, and I'm just really excited to dive straight into this topic right from the get-go, is you are a big believer that entrepreneurs complicate stuff. Accurate?
Yeah. My favorite analogy is kind of like, when you go like wakeboarding or wake surfing, right? You got people behind the boat and you've got the tow line and then you got the board. And people are like getting up and you hit the thing go and they get standing up and then you're just kind of cruising. Well, entrepreneurs are like the driver of the boat. But the problem is the entrepreneur, the driver of the boat, forgets to look behind and see what's actually going on. So they just keep going. And meanwhile, they're like dragging in the water, like stuff's hitting them in the face. Like, the visual, or you've like been there, right? Like, what that's like to just keep getting pounded with water while you're just trying to hang on. And then eventually you just got to let go. And that's what it's like for some of our employees.
Oh my God. I feel kind of called out, actually. We're like 2 minutes interview and I'm like, wow, Bud knows who I am. This is amazing.
Well, it takes one to know one. So,
it sure does. And you are so well-versed in the idea of, I've watched a lot of your content specifically on Instagram, where you're giving these, beautiful segments all about mindset and about like why things aren't working and all that kind of stuff. Why are you so attached to teaching kind of the everyday entrepreneur? Why is that your person?
Well, for me, it's been one of the greatest levers of growth that I've been able to pull on is building something that matters, building something that goes beyond just me, right? Like at the end of the day, like I've built businesses and all that kind of stuff, and some businesses are more profitable than others, and other businesses, like, they've existed to basically pay for the employees. right? So like,
Okay.
yeah, like, well, like meaning like you're still like it's bootstrapped, right? So like all the money you possibly have is going back into the business, right? So for 2-3 years, like you're just continuing to try and scale, which means all of the money, all of the profit is going to employees and their lifestyle. Meanwhile, you as the entrepreneur, you're like, when am I going to get paid? When am I going to get paid? When am I going to get paid? And I know, we should probably consider paying ourselves first. Like that's principle number one there. But like,
Right.
sometimes you just gotta like do what you gotta do. And that's kind of how I've done a couple things. And it was fine. I had other cash flow and other reasons for why I did that. But at the same time, like you're putting in this effort, making this thing happen, and everybody else is getting paid. You know what I mean? So it's like, so anyway, so I just think like coming back to your original question, the entrepreneurship journey is that of figuring out how to serve people at a higher level, not only like the audiences that you have, but also the people that work with you and help you help you on your mission, all of those things.
That's incredible. And I also deeply admire your ability to just be forever learning. Like, certainly you are putting wisdom out there. Certainly there is proof in the pudding that you know what you're doing. You know how to grow a business. You know how to work a team. You know how to do all the things. But I know that you're part of Alan's group, Nothing Held Back. You're part of Inner Circle. Like, you've done Category Kings. Like, you've done all of these things. Where did that foundation of just learning, where did that come from?
Well, funny story is I'm a proud college dropout here. So
Sweet.
so learning in the traditional sense for me, I never liked school. I always hated it. It was I was the kid that would like cheat off of everybody else's papers and like just kind of skated by in school. And I think I graduated with maybe a 2.0 or a 3.0. I don't even remember. I think it was a 3.0. I did good a couple of years, and that was about it. But and then I went to college and originally was going to go to school for mechanical engineering. And so I started taking generals in math and real quick learned that I am not good at math. And which is funny now because I'm in marketing and literally all we do is algebra.
Right. I was going to say.
So it's just funny how that works out, but it's applied, right? So like the difference for me in terms of education was like memorizing and regurgitating in tests never worked for me. Like the way people learn now, it wasn't for me. And so I just kind of, I almost feel like it was a waste of time. Like the best thing for me was like the social aspect of school, right?
Yeah.
So the learning piece wasn't really there. So then I said, okay, I'm not going to do mechanical engineering. Like this math thing is too, like I'm not going to do that. So I started studying business. And then I'm going to business classes. At the same time, I picked up a gig where I was helping manage some of the marketing and some of those pieces, like as a newbie. So I was like learning how to do workflows and automations and stuff like that with Infusionsoft back in the day. And that was my first gig back in 2013. I had done a little bit of website stuff and some things before that, but I just total greenie there. And so I'm learning all these things. And then I'm also going to school for business. And I'm just like, I'm literally like doing the things that I'm learning about. So I just went full in and just leaned in on that. And fortunately, my mentor in that role, he was also an avid learner. And so that kind of got handed down to me from him was just the concept of like continually learning. He was the one who introduced me to Dan Kennedy and Eugene Schwartz and some of the OGs of marketing. And then I found Russell Brunson after that, and so it was just a cool, like just learning became so important to me. And I spent a lot of time figuring it out, right? Like, because at the time, we spent I was doing marketing, but like we weren't putting money into masterminds or any of those things, at least for me. And so I had to kind of work my way through it a little bit and to the point that it made sense for me to do it. And so yeah, I saw the value of education. The way I like to say it is I believe in education. I don't necessarily believe in school.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is such an important discussion for us to understand. Just because I don't fit into this structure, does that mean I don't like to learn? Or does that mean that I'm not smart? Or does that, lots of things that way. Yeah. I like to kind of pick apart your story a little bit where you talked about, chose mechanical engineering, right? That is a no joke major, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to do mechanical engineering, and then I wanted to go get a JD so that I could do patent law, so I could have new projects all the time.
Fascinating. Okay, so I'm starting to see some trends on how you've kind of evolved over the years.
Yep.
Did you have a pretty solid like home life and foundation so that when you quit college, you were like supported and everybody was like, yep, you've got this, you can do this, not a big deal? Or were there some major social ramifications for making that decision?
I was 1 month married. So we were married 1 month when I made that decision. So
Keep going. What was that period of time like when you decided not to do college anymore?
my wife was super supportive. We were both working, we were dinks, dual income, no kids. So like we had, we had a great setup. We were paying like $500 a month for rent. We just had a little apartment. It was really nice. It was really just low key. So like when I said, hey, this isn't working for me, she knew, because she knew the struggles, like how much time I was putting into like my homework and learning and trying to do the math stuff. And, she had seen my frustrations with it. And so she was 100% supportive. And my wife made more money than me for a long time, actually. So like that was, somewhat emasculating, but at the same time, like so cool and inspiring, for her, because like she's amazing, and so that was like, she just worked so hard, and she was the type of person that started as a bank teller and then became, assistant manager at corporate, you know what I mean? And so like she worked her way up and just was very successful as well. And so I had a really soft landing in terms of like getting rid of school and just leaning into work and all that kind of stuff. So it worked out well for me.
Incredible. And you're now a dad. Right?
Yep.
Okay. And so as you guys have made decisions about how to raise your family and move forward that way, what kind of a stance do you take on education?
My girls love school. So they love going to school. They're very social. So they love the meeting friends and being with people aspect. I have 3 girls. My oldest is turning 8 in just a few days. And then my youngest, I have twins that are 5. And so, these girls, they love being around people, maybe because like they spent a lot of their childhood during COVID, like not seeing people.
Oh, big time.
So now it's like, yeah. So I think there's an aspect of that, they like to be around people a little bit. And so my oldest loves school. She's learning a lot, she's thriving there, and it's good. So, it'll serve its purpose until maybe it doesn't, or maybe she'll go all the way through. I'm not really going to make a decision on what we're going to do, because she's dynamic, right? And to understand her worldview that's going to be in 10 years from now is really not going to do her justice to make that decision today. So it's something that I'm kind of like, we'll see where it goes,
Yeah. See where it goes. And that ability, I love the word that you use, dynamic, right? That you are dynamic, she is dynamic, the marriage is dynamic. And so let's not make 10-year decisions right at this point. Right?
I think to have, I'm a big fan of having a vision, right? Having a vision of like, what's our trajectory? What's our values? What are the things that we believe in? And, as long as we keep that horizon in sight, milestones to get there can kind of ebb and flow just a little bit.
Oh, I love it. Well, let me follow up with this question then. We can read so many books where it's called, the 12-month year. We can read 10X is better than 2X, Love Ben Hardy, Change My Life, all of those things, where a lot of it talks about like, what's the goal? Yeah. What's the target? I just had an interview this morning where the question was brought up, well, what do you want? What do you actually want? What is your perspective on helping entrepreneurs actually define what they want and where they're going?
Asking an entrepreneur what they want is kind of, you have some guys that are like so abundantly clear that it's annoying. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you're like, well, I don't know, I'm just here making money. And they just like walk into it and you're just like, oh my gosh. So
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, my follow-up question, and I know you are the man of simplicity, where you're like, just ask yourself what you want. Like, what do you actually want? Yep. What do you say though? Because, and I'll just bring in my own personal experience where some people get caught up in a moral dilemma that what they want actually isn't okay, or what they want is selfish, or what they want doesn't align with God, or like they complicate it. And so I'm trying to bring it into your world where you are the king of simplicity, at least how I've been introduced to you in simplifying things. That what do you do with those kinds of mindsets where it's like, well, that's really selfish for me to want this, or like, talk me through that.
It's easier said than done, but it's kind of like get over yourself. because I think a lot of times, like the reason that we like don't want to articulate the things that we actually want is because somewhere on our journey we had to prove why we were worth receiving the thing that we wanted, right? So somewhere on our path, we had to justify our existence, our desires, our wants, our needs, right? Because somebody didn't like the fact that we had a want, a need, or a desire, right? And and as kids especially, we get questioned. We get, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Well, that's stupid. And everybody shoulda, coulda, woulda on you, and you have to like somehow justify this, right? And so for me, I was the type of kid, and I still am to this day, where if I want to do something, I go do it, and I don't really want people to ask me why, because I don't need to tell you why. It doesn't matter. I want to do it. Right. And so for me, that's the ultimate simplicity, is do things because you want to do them, not because somebody gave you permission. Now, pause game.
Let's go.
We have spousal relationships that matter inside of that. Right. And so it's not as simple as just go do what you want. Right. But I think in addition to that is do what you want, but make sure that your wife or your spouse is on board with the conversation and they understand your why for doing what you want. I think if there's any one person that you want to have any coordination with, it's your spouse. Everybody else, I don't give a flying, what, like just do what you want to do.
Chance, bud. That was your chance to swear.
You told me it wouldn't be there, so I just said, normally I don't have that colorful language anyway. So,
well, I'm fascinated by the idea of like just kind of get over yourself, right? Get over yourself. I have found, and I don't know, like I said to the listeners, we are new friends, right? And I don't know a lot about what your religious upbringing is or your spiritual nature is in any of those realms.
Yeah.
But what happens when maybe traditional Christian values feel to be against what someone wants? I mean, let's talk about, my dream was always to build $1 million a year business, right? Mm-hmm. And the inner turmoil of, why would God ever think that was okay for me to be so selfish to bring in $1 million? This is my brain. Right? So how does religion play into wants, and what do you do when it seems at odds?
Well, if you want to take a Christian perspective at this, the answer is in the parable of the talents. Christ talked about it, right?
Oh, let's hear it.
We are given a talent, right? And you have the talent that hid theirs away. You have the person who hid their talent away. You have the person who sort of grew their talent, and then you have the person who massively grew their talent, right?
Yeah.
So the principle under all of that is that the two that grew their talents were rewarded, right? You have been a faithful steward over the things that I've given you. Here are your mansions, basically, right? And you have the one person who hid the talent, and he was called a slothful servant, right? So if God is willing to give you life, freedom, and the ability to go and do something, and you don't do something with it, man, then as a Christian believer, you have misstepped your obligation to your Christianity and your belief, because God gave you life, God gave you wisdom, God gave you experience to take that and do more with it than what you could possibly do. And if you don't do those things, then you are a slothful servant.
So what is it? I get that. If I'm a musician and I'm a really good singer, it is so easy for me to be like, oh my gosh, yes, I will sing in church. And yes, I will go sing at that pageant. And yes, I will go sing Christmas carols on my neighbor's porch, and I'm using my talent. What is it about when money enters the equation where we get all scattered and disillusioned and, oh my gosh, I'm so selfish? Like, what is it about that equation of money?
The conversation that we're all raised with. Money is the root of all
evil.
Yeah, I didn't even have to say what the word was. You knew exactly what to say, right? Because there's pre-programming that falls in line, right? As kids, and coming back to kind of this concept of childhood, right? Money doesn't grow on
trees.
A penny saved is a penny
earned.
So you have all kinds of money programming that I don't even have to guess. You already know what they are. So if money is the root of all evil, then therefore, we have weird feelings about how money works, and we should or shouldn't have it. But what we most often miss is that the love of money is the root of all evil, right? Mm-hmm. And, at the end of the day, like, if we're talking again, Christianity here, let's say you make all the money that you've ever wanted, right? You have to be willing to have a conversation with Christ that says, go sell everything that you have and serve me, and be willing to do that.
Ooh.
And that's the difference between faithful money and unfaithful money, right? Faithful money is you kind of live that law of consecration, so to speak, that, if God were to say, hey, give it all up and go do this thing, like you would be like Peter, right? You would literally just turn away from everything and follow Christ. That's, to me, that's the major difference between, a worthy pursuit versus another unworthy one.
Oh, fascinating. And because you're so big in the marketing world and you're so engrossed with gurus and experts and success and all of those things, what are some of the checkpoints that we can have as entrepreneurs on whether we are loving money? Like more like daily checkpoints or weekly checkpoints or something that we can check ourselves.
I think so. A lot of times, like, my wife is an incredible human being. She has an ability that I don't, which is empathy. She has the ability to take anybody's situation and understand it. And I'm kind of like driving down the road, somebody cuts me off. I'm like, you dumb idiot. And she's like, that person's dad just died. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, they didn't. They're just a dumb idiot. And she's like, no, maybe they did. I don't know. You don't know either. And I'm like, it's so annoying because I'm like, I just want to be mad. But she's like empathizing with this person who's like just in a hurry or, whatever. And so I think at the end of the day, when it comes to this money conversation and entrepreneurship and business owner success, at the end of the day, the best way to stay in tune with, like, if you're falling off the deep end or going down the wrong road with money, is stay grounded to where you came from. Because I think at the end of the day, we lose sight of this. Like, we start entrepreneurship with a grand vision of having all this money and having all this freedom and being able to love our family and make all these memories and do all these things. And then what ends up happening is somewhere along the lines, that vision gets kind of cloudy with the journey that we're on. And so that vision doesn't stay true to what it once was. And then we get off course and we fall, by the wayside towards something else. We get pulled in a different direction. And it's not a function of like major decisions, hard turns. It's little incremental degrees, which is why that vision of where we're going, keeping that, in sight at all times, is so valuable. And so to me, that's how you can keep in check, is like, know the vision that you established from day one and keep that in front of you all the time and stay grounded to who you are. Because like, you guys know the saying, right? Like, money's a magnifier. It's a magnifier of who you are, good or bad. Yeah. And so as you are on your journey, that magnification becomes, it can be a downfall, right? If you're not careful. And so anyway,
I love it. And I love so much that you talk about that vision that we're constantly checking ourselves against is something that you've created as part of a partnership, right? That agreeance with that spouse or that partner, like, that opinion matters. That opinion matters a lot about where you're going. So a follow-up question to that, what has been an experience that you have had in growing businesses in which things got cloudy, the vision wasn't clear, and you've had to pull back and make even just small, subtle adjustments where you saw a big output from those decisions that you made?
This one's not necessarily in the context of business, if that's okay.
That's fair. Yeah, principally based. Let's go.
So I'll come back to a business one in a minute here, but my first year of marriage, I grew up as a competitive shotgun shooter. So I shot, it's called sporting clay pigeon shooting. I've got some trophies, this elk thing over here. This is one of my favorite trophies there. And so anyway, so I grew up doing that. I was a junior All-American, 9 years, shot for Team USA a couple of those years, and it won a ton of awards, did all that. And then I got married and wanted to continue to do that. And then I realized, one, the cost of doing so was pretty high. And then two, the time. Right? The time to do that. And my wife's number one love language is time, like quality time.
Ooh,
and so at the time, I wasn't aware of any of this. This was all just, like what,
a marriage reality.
Yeah, exactly. And so I booked a bunch of shooting trips and just went on these shooting trips. Meanwhile, my wife's like in her first year of marriage, like, where did my husband go?
Oh my gosh.
And to me, I was just doing what I always did, because that's how I grew up, was like, just go and do these competitions, And so there was like little to no accountability. And it like kind of broke my wife's heart a little bit, so we had some hard conversations there. And so I still shoot, don't get me wrong. She supports me on all that. I now have a different level of conversation when it comes to doing those things, when I want to go do it, it's more pre-planned. We're on the same page. Why are we doing this? All that kind of stuff. Eventually I do want to get back out and do more competitions and stuff like that. But as busy as I am with business, that's kind of a secondary thing. Right. So
yeah.
Now, as in a business example, a lot of times it's just in the day to day, right? Like the day to day conversations of and it kind of comes in spurts, right? So like in our business, we have spring and fall are very busy times for us. And and we do a lot of event based marketing and stuff like that. And so we'll be going from like event to event to event to event to event. And I'm doing, late nights, early mornings, or I'm running an in-person thing here in town or anything like that. And I'm just gone. Like I'm here, but I'm gone.
Yeah.
And so those are conversations that come up that's like, she's very good at keeping me, here's where we are here. You need to be here with us, So having that spouse that one supports you and loves you and unconditionally just wants you to win is so valuable. But also two, having a spouse that's willing to like push you to be grounded as an entrepreneur is also equally valuable.
And this is a fascinating conversation because you don't see a lot of entrepreneurs who have also married an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Like she for sure was climbing the corporate ladder and very driven and very that type. And I love that so much. I think a lot of the disconnect for entrepreneurs can come when they don't feel understood by the partner, that they don't understand the grind or they don't understand the bootstrapping or whatever it may be. Like, talk to me a little bit about that dynamic and how marriages can better navigate being married to an entrepreneur or a non-entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Like what's happening there? What's the dynamic?
Yeah, I am not risk averse at all. I'm happy to take risks and do my thing. My wife is extremely risk averse. So like in so many ways, we are like totally opposites, right?
Yeah.
So what I ended up kind of figuring out was rather than jumping all in on entrepreneurship, I actually leaned in on intrapreneurship. So
I don't know what that is. Educate me.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, what is some new?
So typically an entrepreneur is somebody who like starts something from scratch and just goes all in on it, right? Like they sell everything and start something new. An intrapreneur is somebody who works within a company, intrapreneur, and develops a new way of doing things within that business to create value underneath the structure of the business, right? So, so I had basically a W-2 job for a long time and took that to where I could. And then I proposed basically a partnership within our business to expand that into business ownership. And so that's kind of like, I developed a ton of really good resources, was able to win my ClickFunnels awards and do all those things. And at the same time, we've launched a couple now different businesses within the business that have allowed me to step into the world of entrepreneurship full time versus, just being on a salary and being an employee kind of a deal.
Yeah. And would you say that decision to be an intrapreneur, right? I probably could have figured out that word if I thought about it long enough, but
sure.
Being an intrapreneur, was that based upon the partnership, meaning you being risk heavy, her being risk, like, so that wouldn't have been the path you would have taken had you been a bachelor and just to the wind, you would have gone all in on entrepreneurship?
100%. Yep, exactly.
100%.
Yep.
But out of respect for the partnership and the vision, that was kind of a pivot that you made that still allowed you to get where you are today.
Yep. And I had started businesses before marriage too, right? So like I had other business, like I had a shooting instruction business and I did some MLM stuff for a bit and those were fine. But like when I got married, she wanted something more stable, right? And so I kind of just said, all right, well, let's figure this out. And so I just did what I could and made that happen. And then over time, as I developed my skills, figured out this idea of entrepreneurship and taking things to the next level there. So.
And making it work. I love that maybe what felt like a constraint ended up being the pathway that got your creativity where it needed to be.
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit of a pivot for you because I'm really, really curious about how this has played a role in your life. So you clearly are deeply devoted in your marriage and in your fatherhood and all of those things. I had a conversation earlier this morning with an entrepreneur that I know that you know, in fact, because I told him I was interviewing you and he's like, oh my gosh, tell him hi. I'll tell you after. But
Okay.
we were having a conversation and we were talking about how challenging it is to be a man in the world today and the things that are fighting against being a good husband and man in the world. What is do you agree with him first off with that statement?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's I'm going to go, I like to be principle based, as you can tell.
Let's go.
I think everybody is looking for a reason to justify why they have value in the world. And so the easiest way to do that is to discredit somebody else for being a different way, right? So like as a white Christian male, right, and I am conservative, like that puts me in a position where somebody who's left leaning is immediately going to stereotype me with everybody else who's white Christian and male and conservative, right?
Yep.
And as in that category, I don't agree with everything that white Christian male conservatives do. I think some of them are stupid. I also think there's a lot of good values there too, right? So, but like it drives me. I understand why we have stereotypes. It's basically a defense mechanism to keep us safe, right? Like these people do this thing, so therefore that's who they are. But the problem is that stereotype takes into account the whole, but not the part. And the problem is in our interpersonal relationships, we are parts of a whole. And so if we throw out the whole because one part did something bad, we just threw away a whole bunch of good stuff that we could have like learned from, or we could have had good conversations with, or we could have leaned in a little bit to better understand. And, you know, I don't care which way you lean politically, religiously, or whatever. Like, generally speaking, if you and I sat down at a table and had dinner, we could find some really great conversations to have, even if we were totally opposite sides of the aisle and the spectrum of what we believe and this and the other. Because like relationship, right? Like what's the key word? Relate, right? So how do we relate to one another, right? Back in the day, you know, go back thousands of years, right? Villages, right? They were all mostly related, right? And so geographically was the only way that we could kind of relate to one another. Like, oh, you're in this country and I'm in this country, you know, so now we're enemies, or now we're friends because there's allies and enemies, you know what I mean? So it's just how we're built, right? Like it's so, like I said, the stereotypes are a defense mechanism to keep us safe, because if we've heard and we've been programmed to believe that a certain group of people does a certain type of thing and, you know, they're evil because of that thing, then all of a sudden, anytime you run into that situation, well, now that's exactly what you're going to, you know, that's the expected behavior. Right. And so, you know, I don't like stereotypes. I think they're stupid because, you know, puts me in a bad light. And I think it puts other people in a bad light. I would rather get to know the individual. And I think we need to spend more time doing that.
And I think that's the ticket. The whole thing's so good. And that very last thing that you said about we need to get to know the individual, right?
Yeah.
Need to get to know the individual. These conversations matter so much. And we will sit down for dinner someday and have those kinds of conversations. So let me push that conversation even further. You talk about, I don't love stereotypes. It puts me in a bad light. It's a way that people are pitted against each other. So I'm going to bring up because I live in Utah, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, right? That has brought a lot of conversations to the table for families that are maybe not having typical, you know, conservative conversations, right? Based upon his platform. And one of the points that he is regularly making that a lot of my young boys were bringing home from school and asking me about was his stance on the traditional stereotype that the man should provide. It's better for the man. It's better for the world. It's better for the woman. It's better for all those kinds of things. Talk to me about that stance and where you stand.
Yeah, I agree. I think men and women are differently equipped, right?
Yeah.
I think men are intended to do those things. Like that's just how it is in my worldview, right? Now that said, who am I to say that a woman can't go do those things either?
Sure.
And especially today, right? Like why can't a woman go crush it? Why can't a woman go do those things? Why can't a woman provide? Right. So
Right.
I think traditionally, like, and part of the reason that I say that my worldview, part of the argument for it is I am not a nurturer in the way that my wife is a nurturer.
Oh, yeah. That
Right.
feels clear to you.
That's like, to me, if I were nurturing my kids, they would be severely underserved as a parent. Right.
You're not
Like,
giving yourself credit, bud.
well, I'm just saying, like, everything that I've learned in terms of empathy and nurture and care did not come from me. It was not an innate thing that I had in me. It was something that I learned only by being a parent and only by having a wife who's spectacular at it.
Oh, cool.
And so to
Cool.
me, my innate best thing that I can do to serve my family is to go and make money. Like, that's the best thing that I can do and protect the family. Like, that's, for me, that's it. But and my wife is, like, she's also good at making money. Like, that was a core part of her identity. But she
Right.
is also so great at nurturing these kids and making sure that they are growing up in a world where they are seen, heard, and understood. And like, those are things and skills that I don't have. I wasn't raised with those. I didn't have those in my, like, that's just not part of where anything that I've had. And so in my worldview, this makes sense to me. Right now, I can understand in somebody else's worldview why they might think a different thing. But I also agree that, like, if a woman wants to go crush it, like, why not? Why can't you? Why shouldn't you? I think we have those options now. So I think to stereotype and say only the men should provide isn't really a fair thing either.
Yeah.
But I think in an ideal setting, men are typically more equipped to go do work and labor to make sure the family's protected and cared for. And then the woman is there to nurture and raise the children and ensure that they are cared for emotionally, not just temporally.
Right. Right. And I love how you brought so much on, this is my worldview, my experiences, what I was raised with, what I wasn't, what I've observed, who I'm married to, all of those dynamics come into play, which is why these conversations matter so much.
Get to know the individual. Know the individual. If you know their story, then that makes sense. Versus like, well, he said that men should be provided for. Well, that's just not, I don't agree with him, and now I don't like him. And that's what people do, is they hear one little, that's the issue with Charlie, right? Is they would hear the snippet of what he said, but failed to understand what he was meaning and intending to say and going deeper on those things. Right. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And what a world-class example of why these conversations need to continue to happen in a setting where we are really just looking to relate. How can we relate? How can I have empathy? Fascinated by that. And the reason I even grabbed on to that topic a little bit was when we were initially talking at the very beginning of this, you had talked about what it was like to not be the provider of the home, that you were like, it kind of demasculinized me, right? Like, that's kind of what it felt like. And so, just very personally, do you love to provide?
Oh, I love it. It's a game. It's like the funnest game I could ever play. It's the most stressful and like hard game to play, because it's literally like, if you think about it, like, if we were doing this 5,000 years ago, right?
Yeah.
The function of providing was like killing animals twice our size, like hunting. You know what I mean?
I love that.
like think about it. Like, that's what we were doing, right? But now with modern technology, like, our version of hunting is like, how do we figure out how to launch Facebook ads? How do we make an offer that actually people want to buy? Right. And while there's less risk and stress in doing those things, like that's the career path. You know what I mean? That's how we provide, is doing those things. And so, thank heavens for modern technology, because a lot of people didn't make it through the hunts back in the day. You know what I mean? Like being a man 5,000 years ago was a lot harder than it is now. Being anybody 5,000 years ago is a lot harder than it is now. So we're immensely blessed. And I think we forget that, right? Like, everybody gets mad at the ultra wealthy, and there's arguments for it. I get it. At the same time, like if you're in America, you're like the top 1% of the 1% of the entire world. And then if you take that in the context of the rest of history, you're in the top point like 0%, 1% of the history of the like pharaohs would have given their eye teeth for functioning toilets the way we have them, running water. But like here we are complaining that, that life's unfair. And it's like, okay, let's change your perspective a little bit by putting you in a different scenario. I mean, I think about, you've got this kind of the stuff that's going on in some of the Middle East and Israel and some of the conflicts and things that are happening over there. And I hear and see so many people here in America trying to put their perspective and opinion on this thing, but not a soul, not any of them have been over there to even understand. None of them were raised there. A friend of mine from the inner circle, she was an Iranian, I don't remember how to say it. Anyway, Iranian, I think it's Iranian, Iranian refugee, right? And she left, she escaped, and it was just such a terrible thing. She came to America and she's like, I'm not that. I am American. I'm American. And the fact that like Americans like want to support that over there is sickening to me. You know what I mean? And so she is such a good soul. She just has such, her worldview, right, is that of actual experience inside of those things. And I think what we oftentimes forget is that the perspective of another individual has so much more value than we ever put on it, to understand like what's their worldview that's given them that context as to why they think that the way they think, right? Because in fact, it's funny because my wife and I are talking about this morning with like Israel and Palestine and all this stuff going on there, right? Like in both of their opinions, they're both right. If you ask Israel right. If you ask Palestine, Palestine's right, and Israel's wrong. Like, so it's like, well, that's the reason that there's conflict, right? Because not one is willing to step down from what they believe, right? And they're going to fight for it. Who am I here in Salt Lake City, grew up in Salt Lake City, like privileged compared to them, to have any kind of opinion on what should or shouldn't happen over there?
Right.
Like that's where we get so off base, is we think we know something when really I'd like go over there. If you truly think you know about it, why don't you get on a plane and head on over there and fight the war that you think you're fighting? Because until you're willing to do that, like it's not even worth a conversation. You get so hell bent on thinking one way that you shoulda, coulda, woulda on everybody else in the way that they should think and believe and act and do all these things. When in reality, it's like, you don't really know anything about what's going on over there, right? And then take that down to like the micro of what happens here, just locally, like just with Charlie Kirk, right? Like my worldview and somebody else's worldview, like she thought Charlie, like other people thought Charlie was completely evil, right? Because of their upbringing and all of those things. And when you start to understand their reasoning for things, they probably think they're right because of their worldview. Right?
Like just think about how the world would transform if any time we were about to talk about someone else or any time we were about to be critical, we paused and just inserted that phrase, about worldview. Okay, their worldview is this. And I know that you said your wife is really good at compassion and empathy and that you are not, and you used your driving example. But I would dare say, based upon what you just said, you have developed extreme compassion and extreme empathy by bringing in that phrase of what is their worldview? That moment of pause, like what would happen in the world if we adopted that type of communication with each other?
Yeah. Well, the going up a principle level here
let's go.
Is that God is not a respecter of persons, right? And he is the ultimate, he's the ultimate judge, right? So the only being that can truly judge us is God, right? And the reason for that is he can see our entire worldview. You'll never see my entire worldview because you can't be in my head. You can't see what I see. You can't hear what I hear. You can't think what I think. And you will never have the full context of what's going on in my world. God can. And that's the major difference as to why, God is the only person that can judge us, right? And we should let that be. Let that be the case. We don't need to judge people. We don't need to, everybody's on their own journey, right? And you might be sad that maybe somebody left the church and, that they've done their thing and they're doing their thing. But guess what? That's part of their journey. They have to take that journey. And eventually, truth will prevail. and you have to have faith in that. And for as many people leave, more people keep coming in, and Christ is king. And I'm just going to testify that.
I love it. I'm like, second witness. Yes. Second witness. Yes. Well, I'm actually really fascinated by this very last thing that you said in regards to like, he is the only one that can judge. Right. Mm-hmm. And yet, the very common phrase is that we are surrounded by keyboard warriors, right? That's what my husband calls them, keyboard warriors. Yes. I just finished Brene Brown's book on vulnerability. She mentions that, anger and meanness is cheap and common, and talked about keyboard warriors. So there's this common desire that we have to meddle, right? And to judge and to like interject our view. And hello, you just testified of the Savior here on the podcast, right? That makes a lot of sense. This is the perfect time for you to do that. But how do we navigate just a constant news feed and constant asking for opinions and that kind of stuff in this world that we live in online? Like, how do we do that with integrity? How do we stand up for what's right? How do we not meddle when we shouldn't? How do we not turn into trolls? Like, how do we navigate it?
It goes back to the simple thing. Just try to understand somebody else's worldview. Just get to know the individual, because at the end of the day, like whatever the topic is at hand, you're probably going to disagree on stuff, and it's okay to disagree on stuff. Like at the end of the day, like here in Salt Lake County, they just passed property tax increases, which I'm really not a fan of. Right?
Oh shoot! Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a 14% increase, whatever. Okay, and there's like yeah. So it's like there's so many people that are in there, and it's funny because like most people disagree with this, right? So let's say as an example, somebody's like full on agrees with this property tax increase because that's just how they believe in their worldview. Well, listen, you are never going to convince me that property taxes are a good thing. I am never going to agree with you. Like I don't see a world where I have to pay taxes to the government to live where I live when I'm the owner of my property. Like that doesn't make sense. Right. That's like me renting my property from the state. Like, how does that even compute? I don't get it. Anyway.
Right. Okay.
Like that's my worldview, right? So if somebody wants to disagree with that, that's totally fine. The path through that conversation though is to better understand the individual that we're talking to at an individual level, right? The problem is the keyboard. The problem is the keyboard, because what we end up doing is we end up putting out this unfiltered version of ourselves that we're insulated from, and we don't actually get down to like real communication and real understanding of us as individuals, right? And so because of that, like the conversation is never actually a conversation. It's a yelling match, basically. It's a proverbial yelling match between two people trying to make their worldview matter because somebody told them that it didn't matter somewhere, and they're just getting upset about it because they can, Yeah. And I think everybody, like I said, we started this conversation with get over yourself, right?
Yeah.
Let's come back to that.
Good principle.
Like people just want to be seen, heard, and understood. Like that's at the end of the day, like that's what people want. This is why you go to Disney movies and you feel the emotion of the movie when it's stupid cartoons on a freaking screen. Like at the end of the day, like it's just a good story that touches our hearts in a way that gets us to feel. And we feel seen, heard, and understood. And all of a sudden now that emotion comes out. Disney's great at doing that. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to this, like, how do we navigate a world where keyboard warriors are more present than ever? Like, one, just stop keyboard warrioring, like stop trying to do that and just start connecting with individuals, like connect with people around you. Like, like there's people in my neighborhood that I could be connecting with that I don't, right? Like that's just coaching for myself. Like there's people here that probably could use some support, you know what I mean? And a conversation here and a conversation there, there's that Chinese saying, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's like, if you want to change a household, change the man. If you want to change a community, or if you want, sorry, like I said, I think it goes the other way. I think if you want to change the nation, change the state. If you want to change the state, change the community. If you want to change the community, change the family. If you want to change the family, change the individual, or something like that. Right. And it's like, basically the premise of the proverb is that change comes from an individual, and over time ripples its way to bigger scales. And the problem is we have the adversary, other people that are trying to change people in not the right way, right? And it's getting people to do things. Look, the oldest trick in the book, guys, in terms of politics, is to get everybody to say the other person is evil. It's the oldest trick in the book, and they've just been doing it.
Oldest time.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like people just fall right into it, left and right. It's both sides. It's not one or the other. It's everybody. Right. It's the cheapest trick you could possibly use to persuade people to side with you, is to convince your audience that the other side is evil.
Yep.
Works every time. People keep doing it.
It's true. And why would they change it? Because it works.
Exactly. It keeps working. And here we are in the middle fighting each other because some talking head on TV said that the other side's bad. It's like, there comes that stereotype. There comes that lack of individual understanding of that person and their worldview, which then leads us to arguments and keyboard warring and all those things.
Well, I am just completely blown away. I knew we would be friends. Bless you, Mandy Keene, right? I knew we would be friends. But I really loved what you brought up about the proverb, right? About really, really looking at what you do have access to listen and understand and be compassionate with. And I remember when that tsunami hit, right? And it was just devastating. Gosh, it was just like 10, 15 even years ago. I don't even know the year. But I remember going to a church meeting, and this amazing leader was speaking, and she was talking about how she had just had hundreds, if not thousands of women reaching out to her on how can we help? How can we impact? Like, what can we do? What can we do? And she got a little bit stern, right? Because, the church was sending millions of dollars of resources and help to aid tsunami victims and those impacted. But she said, I think sometimes we miss the mark that when we are constantly reaching out on how we can change the world, when we aren't looking within our neighborhoods. Right? We're missing the mark when we look at the neighborhood, and when we're not looking in our neighborhoods. And I think that is even, call me out if I'm wrong, more of a temptation for entrepreneurs to look wide instead of looking at the immediate. Yeah. They look, here's how I'm going to impact the world, and I'm a digital marketer, and I'm going to make 2 cup of club. And like, they look here and they forget about the marriage. And then they forget about the kids, or they forget about their church pew, or like, have you seen that in the entrepreneurial world? Do you think that's a temptation for us?
100%. That kind of alludes back to what I was talking about earlier, where it's like, you have to have your vision of where you're going. Because if it's not clear, and all of the stuff that comes up in front of you as you're on the journey, like that clouds the vision of where you're trying to go. And so like the more you allow all of these other things to kind of get in front of you, and so to speak, like, it pulls you off the mark of what you're actually trying to accomplish. Like, it's, I'm a guilty workaholic, right? I'm working on that with Mandy Keene, right? And so like the thing that I need more than anything is to have a safe, fun place that I can go to when I'm not at war with the business, right? When I'm not out fighting. My favorite saying and my number one goal of where I want to be in life is I want to be a warrior at peace.
Oh, goosebumps.
Yeah. It's because like there is that saying too, right? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener at war. And so, to know how to grind and build business and do all that stuff is awesome. But to be able to enjoy time with my kids is even more awesome. And that's where most entrepreneurs lose the battle. They lose their marriages, they lose their health. They spend all their health trying to accumulate wealth, and then later figure out, oh, I did this wrong. And now they spend all their wealth trying to reaccumulate their health that they spent. Right. And so it's flipping that around and saying, how do I do all of this now? As Garrett White says, the have it all lifestyle, right? How do I have it all now? Like, if you don't think that way, you're going to lose all of it eventually.
I cannot think of like a better way to tie a bow on the conversation than that concept. And so I really want to follow up before I get into some rapid fire stuff. Just one final question of like, that does feel like the dream, bud, to have it all. Thanks, Garrett, like all those things, but like how?
So obviously you need like good strategy, good tactics. Like that's a given. You gotta play the cards right. Like you gotta know what you're doing.
Game. Yeah.
Yep, you gotta play the game, right? Second to that, and probably the more important part is get your mind right. Because at the end of the day, why do we get distracted? Why do we get pulled off of anything that we're trying to work towards? There's too much noise. There's too much distraction. There's too much things going on, right? Why is it automatic for us to pull up Facebook and like dopamine seek and doom scroll for a while? Because we're unfulfilled in certain areas. We don't have enough dopamine in the natural state, right? And so getting your head right, getting your mindset in the right place so that you have a solid way of thinking about everything changes the game, which means taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care and family's not wife, spouse, and kids like I keep talking about for me. Family is what you want to define it as, right? Like don't get hung up on that, right? So take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of the things that matter and hold those tight, hold those close to your chest. And then have clear conversations and communication and connection with those individuals so that when you go off to fight the war, they're on the same page. They know what's going on. They know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then when you come home, and I need to work on this, take this thing and set it to the side and focus on them. I got reminder, but I got to work on that. That's just a note for me. But like, that's one of the, like, this thing is such a box that just never leaves my side. Cause it's like, I might have a work emergency. I might have somebody that needs me, there's something here. And it's like last night, I put it away for a couple hours at least and spent time with my kids and it was awesome, and just had to do that more often. That's what keeps you whole. That's what keeps you on the path. That's what serves you at the end of the day, more so than any of the money you could make. Right. Because if all of the experiences and all of the memories that you try to make are gone by the time you make all the money, what was it for?
What was it for? And what a life of regret, right? At the end of that. And I especially just love throughout our conversation, your very real humility of the things that are hard for you and the things that trigger you and the things that don't land right with you. And I love 3 or 4 times you've said, I'm making a note of this for myself. Just recognizing that this is an opportunity for you to grow and learn. And I know that you have a lot to offer as well that we could talk about in this conversation about health, health and wellness and how you've been able to maximize that. And what I'll do is I'll put a pin in that and say, when I build my podcast studio, I'll bring you down and we'll record that one across each other for a part 2. But I just thank you for your realness, right? And you are true to your word that you do think in principles and that you do believe that the answer is in simplicity. And that has been such a breath of fresh air for me. So thank you so much, Bud.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Awesome. Well, in typical fashion, I just have a couple of rapid fire questions for you to tie a bow on this conversation. Our listeners have been so richly fed already, but are you ready to go?
Oh yeah, let's go.
Okay. We're actually going to do 3 questions. First one is, what is one book every single entrepreneur should read?
Oh.
Go look behind. Got to play favorites today.
Yes, I do. Man, if there was one book that I could give you for entrepreneurs, right?
Entrepreneurs.
One book for entrepreneurs. I struggle to give this one because it's such a generic answer, but it's like it's so real. Think and Grow Rich. Like it's just to me that's a generic answer, but like that's probably the best book that you could like the most principles you could get in one book as far as entrepreneurship goes.
That one has never been said, by the way.
Okay. All right. I have a couple of others like that, but like if you were to say marketing, I would have said something different, right? So it's like if you give me categories, I can do that. But I like to just say entrepreneurship, like Think and Grow Rich. Like that's the number one principle of entrepreneurship is like how do you develop like the whole like think about it. Name an entrepreneur whose vision is not to grow rich.
No, there isn't one.
So Think and Grow Rich, therefore, should be the only answer to that question. That's my line of thinking.
You're like, I can defend my answer. Yeah. Well, and because it's my podcast, I can break the rules. What would the marketing book be?
Expert Secrets.
Okay. Foundational. Love it. Okay. Second official question is, what is something on your bucket list that you have not done yet?
Oh boy. Like an experience, right?
Sure.
Okay. I have wanted to like go. There's a couple of shooting places in like Europe and stuff like that, and I wanted
Oh,
to
cool.
go and just tour Europe and do a bunch of shooting tournaments over there. They have some really cool facilities, and in England, like in England, like it's such a gentleman's sport to have like the over under and the tweed sport coat and the tall boots and the whole thing. Like that would just be so fun.
And would you wear the whole thing if you
Oh
went
yeah,
to England?
if
Oh
if
yeah,
if it was like part of the experience, absolutely.
oh, I love it. I mean, I have to admit, my only experience with clay shooting is duck hunt. And so I just love that it's like a very real thing.
Oh
I
yeah.
just think it's so cool. I love
Well,
it.
we should get some of our entrepreneur friends together and go do a whole experience. I facilitate those sometimes. It's awesome.
I would do it. I put me
Yeah.
on the wait list.
All
I'm
right.
first in line. Incredible. All right. The third question is about your sweet kids. Okay.
Mm.
And if you were to fast forward to the end of your life, what do you hope your kids say about you?
Oh man, you're gonna make me cry on that.
Daughters.
Yeah, being a girl dad changed me like
I believe
big
it.
time.
Yeah.
I would just want them to say, "My dad loved me. My dad did everything for me."
I love it. It's all a girl wants.
Yeah, when we were pregnant with our first child, there was a woman who she's a successful speaker. She's in the NSA Hall of Fame, I believe, and just very, very, very well to do kind of a lady, and very proper as well. And she pulled me aside and she grabbed my arm and she says, "Listen, your relationship with your daughter is going to be special and different than any other kids you may have. Any other boys, anything like you might think that your boy is going to matter more to you, but I'm here to tell you the relationship between a father and a daughter is one of the most critical things that you could possibly value in this world, not necessarily for you, but for her." And so I took that one to heart and have just tried to do my very best to be the best girl dad I can be. And I fail all the time, but do a lot of things right too. So
I love that. And I'm going to cheat. How has being a girl dad changed you? I have to know.
it's given me a softer side. I grew up very, very tough and rough. And, it's like I said, I've not had a lot of empathy, but I think probably that girl dad thing is really what got me that ability to empathize and understand people's worldviews and go deeper on that than anything else. Because prior to that, like caring for others, all I had to care for was myself. And then I had to figure out how to care for a wife, and then I got a dog and that helped. But then getting, having a daughter, like, that very first moment of holding something that you created, like there is nothing more sacred or spiritual than that. And that one hit me hard, just
incredible
holding that little girl. So, and then 2 more after that. So it's just amazing.
I love it. I have a soft spot. My dad was a girl dad. He had a very similar phraseology about how it softened him, and man, he was extraordinary. And that relationship was everything to me. So good. I think she was right, and you are well on track.
Well, good.
Well, again, so grateful for this conversation. Thank you for being here, for being real, for being raw, and really helping all of us elevate our lives towards, the bigger goal with our families in tow. So again, a huge thank you to the amazing Bud Heaton. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.